Hello and welcome to another episode of Politics for Noobs, brought to you by scotspolitics.com. On February 5th, 2013, that was yesterday at time of filming, the House of Commons voted in favour of same-sex marriage. Now there's still a wee bit to go before gay marriage is legalised in the UK, it still has to go through the House of Lords and stuff, but until that time, we're just going to talk about the whole subject, gay marriage. Now, before we go any further, there's something you should probably know about me. I am a straight, white, middle-class male, so pretty much everything I say on this topic doesn't really count. Although it's important for all demographics to be heard, I'm pretty sure my demographic has had more than its fair share of screen time on this. I'd hope that you wouldn't hold that against me. Oh, you're still here. That's very kind of you. I promise to make this as quick and as unpatronising as possible. I think the best way to get through this rather large topic is to go through some of the bigger questions I found online and answer them one by one. Question number 1. Gay people have civil partnerships. Isn't that pretty much the same thing as marriage? Legally speaking, they are pretty much the same thing. One of the massive differences, though, is that the Civil Partnership Act 2004 omits to put adultery as a cause for divorce. This is arguably Westminster's reluctance to acknowledge the sexual dimensions of same-sex marriage. However, adultery and infidelity would still be cause for the dissolve of a civil partnership. A divorce. It does, however, highlight society's wish to keep homosexuals at arm's length. It's like if when women got the vote, instead of getting votes, they got chotes. Now, chotes act exactly the same way as male votes, but, they're not really the same thing. They still stand for a difference between men and women. You can see how technically they're the same thing, but frankly, there's still a divide there. They've not been made into the same thing, so they're not yet equal. It's the same thing with civil partnerships. You can see how they're well-meaning and they are productive, but it seems to be more of a reaction to homophobia than an actual step towards equality. Question number 2. Isn't marriage a sacred institution? Now this implies that marriage is just for religious people, whereas in 2010, non-religious civil marriages made up 68% of all marriages in the UK. So the majority of marriages aren't actually religious and therefore not sacred. Now if you are religious, if that's your bag, that's what you're into, absolutely it is sacred, it totally is. But marriage is not a thing that is controlled by the institution, by the church with a capital C. If gay marriage was made legal, it wouldn't be forced upon anyone of any faith to marry anyone that they didn't want to. No one will be forced to do anything that they found sacrilegious. It would just be made a personal choice, and it's a thing that's happening over there, and if you have a problem with it, then that's on you. Number 3. Gay marriage would weaken the institution of marriage. I would say that there's been so much talk about marriage being purely a legal thing. It's about inheritance and how people share their money and all that kind of stuff as a way of being anti-same-sex marriage, that maybe opening up the institution of marriage again, talking about it as something for people to come together, for people who are in love, that maybe that might strengthen the institution again. I don't know, it's an idea. Question 4. Isn't there a need to preserve traditional marriage? The thing about traditional marriage is that it used to mean you could marry children, and interracial couples couldn't get married, and that your parents would decide who you married, so that it would be about bringing together lands and money. When people say things like, oh, things were better in the old days, and tradition is super important, they tend to exclude the fact that in traditional marriages people would, rape their wives and stuff. Traditional marriage is when a man owns a woman, and frankly, I don't want a traditional marriage. Number 5. This isn't an equality issue. Yes, it is. Number 6. Gay people can't have kids. Whoa, Iain, is that all you're going to say about the equality thing? Yes, it's about equality. It's about making sure people get equal rights. But Iain, gay people can marry too, just not to people of the same sex. Yeah, but not the people that they love. If you think that just because you hate the idea of two willies touching is up there with not being able to marry the person that you love, then yeah, I can fathom how you might be able to consider that this isn't about equality. Number 6. Gay people can't have kids, so they shouldn't be able to get married. I would have thought this is quite a simple one, really. If it was all about procreative sex, then surely post-menopause women would be banned from getting married. What about infertile men? What about heterosexual couples that just plain don't want kids? Number 7. This is an issue with the definition of marriage. A marriage is one man and one woman coming together in legal matrimony and stuff, so it's unchangeable. It's written down, it can't be changed. Except Henry VIII changed it a bit, and the rules have changed before, please see children and interracial couples. When marriage is a civil, legal institution of the state, the citizenship have the right to redefine it so that it's up to date with current equality laws. Number 8. Once same-sex marriages happen, won't people want to marry their family, animals, and children? No, not only is that gross, it's also very stupid. This argument comes from the complete misunderstanding of what it is to actually be gay. It's directly relating homosexuality to bestiality, paedophilia, and incest. real classy. If you think this is genuinely an issue, you should have a look at Canada, where it is legal to have same-sex marriage, and observe if there are any movements to marry dogs. I'll give you a clue, there isn't. Gay people don't even want marriage. Yeah, they do. I think some of them are even quite keen on the idea. I think there's an idea that because a liberal elite has made gay rights somehow fashionable, and maybe politically it's been used as a tool to misdirect fire away from more pressing issues like the dismantling of the NHS, that somehow the movement for gay equality is somehow less valid. Could we consider the possibility that our politicians might be able to maybe multitask? They could fight for equality as well as do their, the rest of their jobs? Just an idea. I would also like you to consider how a country like the UK legalising gay marriage would send a message of solidarity to men and women everywhere. It's not fashionable for an Iranian with a noose around his neck, nor is it playing for left-wing votes when a Ugandan is pushed up against the wall and shot for his sexuality. Anyway, to finish up on a cheerier note, I went on Twitter before I started writing this episode, and I asked people to give me their thoughts and views in the form of a lovely poem. The winner of that little contest was Colin Curry, who wrote, "There once was a chap named Ben, and he was a big fan of men, but the government said that they could not wed. So he and his partner emigrated to a fairer and more understanding country where they were able to spend the rest of their happy lives together as part of an equal society." Charming. I've been Iain Explains. Cheerio.